Last week we considered verse 20 to 26. Here the Lord showed how this commandment, thou shalt not kill, the extent of it, showed that it goes beyond the actual murder of taking a life, as he expounded it, and that anger out of hatred, malice, and envy are also things, acts that are also under this law that forbids killing, so that anger out of hatred or malice or envy amount to murder. And also insults, words that are said to insult people are also under this. They are all violations of this law that forbid murder. So anger that are out of hatred or malice and envy, and also words that are to like slander, and words that are meant to insult people are also part of this too. This law that forbids murder, that shall not kill. Last week, no, verse 20-26, so Matthew chapter 5. Radio school to mean some more kind of people on the sooner I hear. Now, honor, you read this okay. Mra, it's here, say, ma, obeying you, being confidence, sama, obeying Kumo, so thou shalt not kill me. I don't know, church, you much and say, name Chimuno, a call. Afa mpo say ebufuo afi otaimu ene dwombone ene enibremu na nsam wa yeka etie bi mu egu omho fi nya ewo sa mraya se wo unku obi kwa na sa wo yesa nyome ya wo se obi a woku obi ewo eradie. And so this reminded us that all motives, words and actions that are meant to damage the reputation and happiness of others are all equal or equivalent to physical murder. And so God will punish all who are in today's sin as if they are murderers, because it's the law forbids all these things under this head. Who said, I've been born in some way, Jumedibia. Bibaye abema obi epra obi anase aha obi nati obi na bia ne din owo so anase ni gie so no nya atisema oku dipa anase waje dipa kra ekunisem ye ka awudifo a obi oyesa ne omani otse widini ewo urade ni. So the Lord expanded this law so that if people have not killed physically, they've been involved in this kind of conduct, the Bible tells us it equals to murder, and that they must be aware of that. So we continue tonight also. We are going to look at from verse 27 going, and we see where we can reach. And I intend to go to 32, but I don't know if we can, but we're looking from verse 27 onwards. So this will be the part 12 of this series, Sermon on the Mount, 12, Matthew chapter 5, 27 onwards. We continue. So I'll read you verse 27. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. How so you read Jesus Christ or say, I'm what to say, I can't grab a trim and read to say, ma, what do you say? We are into our area, so that's the P, yeah, that's the P. Ma, obi into our area, so obi, our area among funny rich and as any committee. Sana, Semrano. Sawari for your warrior and Sasa will be far name. Now, and here the Lord again touches on the law to explain it for us. And here, this law, as you will see in the explanation, it touches on that part which forbids all sexual immoralities. The law that forbids all sexual immoralities. You see that his explanations will give us this understanding as we go on. And as we also saw when we started the law's explanation of the law and how the extent they ought to be taken, we see that all his explanations exposes the limitations the Jews, the scribes who were the teachers in Israel have attached the commandment. They have merely limited the commandment to mean just the actual act, and all the other branches of it, they just neglected them. So the Lord will show that there are other aspects that has to be looked at when we think of the law of God, not merely the actual act. Radius Christo. So also, Mra, Okano, Mra, Etia, so we got to our real, so we the funny plan. I said, now, some way in America said, some more chance here. Our church and Branimuno. Emranimu Biano. Omehu said, no way break us, Brano, Echi, idea, a cassatia. And yet, it said, be a Nipano Bay, a Diana Branicano pet and one. And your way break a hoa. We are some Brano so etia. Now, Mary no church, sir, and Branimu. 10 commandments, no, church mu a amaye hu yetumi hu mesima Israel for a church for no me a church for Israel na mo kyen yame asem no ehu se omo de mra no omo nkyeremu ye omo kyeremu kakra no moja na moja nkae no de ehihia bebre no omo mfa enka o empo se de fa enwoma ni pani hu Ayakubo pena otumi hu no eno no omo mfa nkan but Jesus Christ ba me hu say mra no ko ekire saa enyoma nipa kran fo na ni hu no aye bone we rade anim na mra no e wo sa mra na se no eye ade a mra no kutia. So it says, you have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. So for the Jews, this law forbade only the married person. It's against infidelity in married persons. So for the Jews, that's how they took it. So that when a married person becomes disloyal to his partner or a partner, then he violates this law. Sa emra we Jew for no said them kind no omo fa ne say asiti for omo fa ne say. So be find it na na yere na sa emra we etia no. And actually, and it is true, this law, that's part of this law, was infidelity in marriage is indeed hateful to God. And this law forbids infidelity in marriage. Because infidelity is a betrayal of the love of a wife or a husband. So the Lord hates disloyalty. And much worse, infidelity is the breaking of a marital vow, of which God was a witness. Because when people marry and they said the oath, the marital oath, God is a witness to that. You know, every oath, God is a witness. Whether it's said between two people, wherever, it's a promise. And God is a witness to that. So adultery is a breaking of that marital vow. It's a betrayal also, the love of a wife or husband to the partner. So it's a serious matter where God hates. And so it's part of this law. But as I said, the Jews often look at this part of the law alone. That this thou shalt not commit adultery only has to do with infidelity. A married person who goes beyond his or her partner to have other relations. Said the American, Mrawe no Jew for no fano, and who said. It's now put a tear, said they be a warrior for Befa or Bana say, Nipu, a Akofa or the Fufu. The America said, the correct account there, if you say, Samra we etia saa esu no a Nyankopɔn empe. If you say oba aware ananse be ma ware fa ne yere ananse ne kunu echi a eye ade a say we di ne hwam ananse do a owo ma ne yere ananse kunu no we when di ne kure amasa edo no wa fa ne chi na de eye serious kwa ne say mra aware fo ehia omeware no also omuka omu promise omu show omu bo na ye ebo bia nipa be hye no Nyankopɔn na adanse die sɛ woyɛ nipa menu kwa na ɛkɔhye bebi ɛhyɛ ebo kwa Nyankopɔn ɛfa no ɔyɛ adanse ni ma saa ebo a ɔbo be hye no nti sɛ awarefo ahyɛbɔ na ɛko abu saa ebo no so no na ɛkyɛ sɛ Nyankopɔn nso ehu sɛ ebo na ɔmo hyɛ n'anim no ɔmo abu so ade ekutia Nyankopɔn so wabu mmara ɛwɔ Nyame anim enti Nyankopɔn echi di mmara we akutia saa esu no sɛ ɔbaa na sɛ bɛrima ɔware bɛfa ne yere na ne kunu echi and infidelity was one among the sins which the Lord rejected the offerings of the people of Judah in the time of Prophet Malachi. Prophet Malachi no bɔne bebree na Israel for no ɛyɛ a ɔde bra ɔmo Nyankopɔn chi na sɛ obi bɛfa ne yere chi na ɛka saa abɔne no. Let me read to you Malachi chapter 2. You see that God said that he will not accept their offering because of this sin. Nyankopɔn ga sɛ ɔngye ɔmo afɔrebɔ fi sɛ saa abɔne wei ɛwɔ ɔmo mu. Malachi chapter 2 verse 11 to 16. Chapter 3. From verse 11, Malachi chapter 2. Judah hath dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah had profaned the holiness of the Lord which he loved, and had married the daughter of a strange God. The Lord will cut off the man that doeth this, the master and the scholar, out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offereth an offering unto the Lord of hosts. And this have ye done again, covering the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping, and with crying out, is so much that he regarded not the offering anymore, or receiveth it with good will at your hand. Yet ye say, wherefore? Because the Lord had been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Yes, is she thy companion, the wife of thy covenant. And did not he make one, yet had he the residue of the Spirit? Wherefore one, that he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. So that's the warning here, that some of the Jews have left their wives, the men have left their wives and have gone for other women, and yet they offer offering to the Lord. The Lord said, no, the Lord said, oh, you have their treachery, that is infidelity there. They've broken the marital vows, and that they've gone beyond their wife. So it's one of the sins which the Lord hates very much, and so this law forbids that. And the Lord made the people of Israel to be aware that he will not accept their offerings because they were committing these sins, and then they thought that God doesn't care. They will come and offer their gift. He said, no, obedience is better than sacrifice. Yeah, Malachi, now all come and say, Judah for Israel for no, Omo, and Berman be a jaja, Omo, no makofa, and Mafro. No movie so no more for year. Malachi, from Malachi, catch him said, no, Yanku Pon said, on Jim, for a bomb day, but if you say, Omo Kosu, yes, I want to Omo Chum. Also, I dance me. Yanku Poso ya dance before Mama warrior, Bosha or Moshe, our Mabusu. So I will say, sounds okay almost say, fititi no Nyankopɔn bɔ ɔbaa ɔbɔ omunya baako na deɛ nti ɔyɛ saa no nea bi a ɛba ɛbɛfi mu aba no so ɔbaa no bɛrima ɛwɔ no yɛ baako ɛba ɛbɛfi mu aba no ɛho ate ama no and so this the Lord's accusation against the Jews here, the Lord brings before them that they have sinned against the men. Some of the men have left their wives, and that meaning they've dealt, they have become unfaithful to them. And then, but the Lord says that He is a witness to their marital vows they had when they were youths, and that they have broken it. And He even brought to their mind that the purpose of verse 15, and did not He make one? Here's a reference to the Lord making a man and a woman, that God made only one woman for man, so that they ought to stay with their wives and not to break away from them. Because if God wanted to make more than one woman for a man, He could have made more. So He said that, and did not He make one, yet had He the residue of the Spirit. God had the means to really make more than one woman for man, so long as He made one woman, meaning that each one has to marry one and not to break away from her and also from him. So we find that infidelity, which falls under this, thou shalt not commit adultery, is something that the Lord hates. But as we said, the law goes beyond just infidelity. It goes beyond that. The Lord will explain for us to see. But at least, as we say, the mother sin, the main which we find is that of infidelity between the married partners, that the man and the woman going after others beyond his or her partner. But the Lord hates it because the breaking of a vow, the breaking is something so that when it happens, it's like the promise, the person who does it is like becomes like an unfaithful person. The Lord hates breaking of promises. Verse 28. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. So the Lord now extends the law, and that he further showed the extent of this law, that it includes unclean desires and thoughts, which lay hidden in the hearts and in the mind, and these are part of adultery. See, so not only the infidelity where it happens in the marriage person, but here every unclean desire and thoughts in the mind, in the heart, is part of idolatry. So that adultery extends to every form of sexual immorality, not merely in the married, but also even in the unmarried. Because when it comes to this and other form of sexual immoralities, they are all part of defilement, which falls under adultery. So that's the extent the Lord is bringing to our mind. The air can say, "Radio is Christo." The Okanta was saying that Yasamamu and 2 hours so. But 20 was saying that Messimo say, "Now we be around or they need a show bar, no, I don't know, I come I found that." And now when all they say, "I dream a corner and about the Obama trim, not so bad a fat Obana Bema Hono. Obi Uncle Huno, young Coupon, a fan of said, to say, Obi our 2 hours. It is Umrana a sequence of my and 2 hours. A sound some run so far. Abrabo and answer, Agni and answer, Subiara. I said, if you agree a hoofino, a sound so a cat, brand. So, Sabia Nipa no worry, so worry you say, Saturday or more. It is said they will go our rear. It sounds so a idea, trust it. It is as we are tower, so it should be no worry, but a good Nipa a hoofing. That's a Jamaibo. No, Wakum. So, this is how far the Lord brings to our mind concerning this law. But we know that in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1 to 5, we are taught that an aspect of marriage is to prevent fornication. You know, fornication is part of sexual morality. Let me just read it to you. Not that it's the only purpose, but an aspect. If you First Corinthians chapter 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1 to 5. It says, our rear, but it's your mind. Let me read to you. Now, concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman, nevertheless to avoid fornication. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath no power of her own body by the husband, and likewise also the husband hath no power of his own body but his wife. Defraud ye not one another, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourself to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. So we see that what purpose of marriage, an aspect of it, is to prevent fornication in the unmarried. And so this, those of us who are married, this and believers, this must remind you that the Lord has made provision against fornication, because it's a human weakness, yet there's a provision for that. In the verse chapter 7 verse 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 9, we are told that it is better to marry than to burn. Even for those who are widows but they are young, it is better for them to marry than to burn. And so that fornication on sexual moralities can be avoided even in the state of the unmarried, because there's a provision where we can get married, and then so that we don't fall into all this kind of defilement. So that for one thing, that for the unmarried Christians, it's better to marry if you are of age. That's what this is telling us. And I'm sure we know that to marry means you have to make preparations and all that, but I'm sure that, but what we have to put as a standard is, if I'm able to work to provide for the necessities of life, then I should be able to marry. If I'm able to, if I mean, I don't have a work, I cannot. God, the Bible says that if you are married as a man, you have to be able to provide for your house. But it means the necessities of life. See, so that if I'm a young man and I can provide the necessities of life, then I can, and as a Christian, it's better to marry than to live a single life and to fall into sexual immorality. And the may kind of say, I can 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 1 to 5, Apostle Paul church room saying our real idea and go pon dem ma yes be si adwamanbɔ ne sa hofi bobo ho ban efi ho na ye kenkan no make us say or say kai on a omo enware ye no ewe mu no say Nyankopɔn wamayen wayen hyehyɛ de amayen a ebekɔ kutia adwamanbɔ. If we say adwamanbɔ yɛ ahomra ɛwɔ nipa mu, but wayen hyehyɛ de amayen na aware na kan 1 Corinthians chapter 7 the church aware yɛ hyehyɛ Nyankopɔn de ato hɔ ama. And now verse 9 of chapter 1 Corinthians chapter 7 it say ɛyɛ so be ware sin sɛ wo be hye saa word ne kyerɛ I say akono be hyɛ so ma odi akakodi adwamanbɔ anasa nneɛma entini echi, so that it's better to marry than to burn. But it's better to marry than to be burnt with passions or desires that are unclean. That's the meaning of the word. Na make us say hwɛ so we Kristoni na sɛ we sisu no adu aware emre no a also worry. Na the crowd will say, well, answer be one also who say be a bibi a obetumi nneoma ohia ebeboa wa brabom no obetumi enye bi to say be aduane ni sa be obetna ni sa nyoma ni botumi ahwe ho so otumi adwuma na otumi yesa de no nko ade awa hwensi kwan so so beware hwensi kwan so so beware na so otumi ware na ka esi kwan se bi a so hwe betumi ato na ka bi onware ye no na de wakoto adwaman bo ana sa de a abrabo a egu nipa ehofi. So the unmarried Christian, it is better to marry when we are of age than to continue, and then temptations of sexual moralities will become a burden upon us. And why am I saying this? Because there's a worldly idea that's try to encourage young people, whether young men or women, that you have to achieve your aim before you marry. You see, it's a worldly idea. Achieve your aims in life before you think of marriage. No, the Christian doesn't think that way. Yes, you have aims in life, but those aims should not be a hindrance to marriage. Because this ungodly idea that you have to achieve or try to how do they say, achieve your aims in life. It appeals to both young men and women these days. And this often has led many to even they have this cohabitation. Well, young man and woman, they live together without proper marriage. They don't care about marriage. And I have witnessed some young people, they've gone into relation, they were not married, they went to live with that maybe male partners. Even their parents want them to even regularize the marriage. They don't care about it. They don't value marriage. They are happy they are living, see? Because maybe they think marriage will try to restrict them, or maybe it will make them committed, but whatever. So that the idea of cohabitation even is very appealing to young people in our time, because it frees them from marriage, and then they pursue whatever. I think in the Western world it's very common. I think they have so many laws even about cohabitation. You can choose not to marry, but live with anyone, and share responsibilities, and then you move on in life. But all these ideas are worldly. It's ideas that leads to adultery, fornication, and all sorts of sexual immorality. So, this worldly idea is good for the worldly, but they don't care about purity and also breaking of God's law. I dream possible. Abemo anasa abayua awesisu we would do our rear emrakra no. Pesa obe to me obi awoni what I swear ni so abra obe to me etumi enya ansa no aware no. We say we ase adwen if we say ema mbayo anasa mbema ekoto how to say my born sua emfata to say the ka ho asemi ema omukotom free say asebia oba onware ne bema omware no mte fa kono enemre ayade a yen youth esisu no eyo fe onware omote bibia and locking it down anytime we be able to me then all that. So but we are saying nti mra ote saa brabo no a anya papa ni mu no a egu efi ebu nyankopon bra so no na ofisa bi a won na ebutai bi a okoso no yeden odi ekire wo wiase mu na meka say saa adwen no de obi oye wiase ni de ebebo an so no say obegu ne ho fi ana so bebu nyankopon bra aware ana adwaman bom no emfa no ho. So it is good for them it motivate their life, but a believer must know better, because in all our life the Lord must be honored, and even if it means that I should lose my worldly comfort, so long as it's a way of obedience, a believer must give himself to such a conduct. We must not be misled by worldly ideas about life, even when it comes to marriage, because there are so many ideas. Sometimes in your own family members will try to influence you with so many ideas, your uncles, your auntie, your mother, your father, whatever. But ask yourself, I'm a Christian. Is he or she a Christian? Do they also value the Lord? That's the question. See, I know when it comes to marriage and others, our families, I mean, the extended family, they seem to get involved. But whatever advice they give, you have to ask yourself, are they Christians? You should know better. If I'm a Christian, I should know better. So that whatever the ideas they have or they try to advise me, if it contradicts the Lord's will, I throw them away. Whatever choice I make, if they are displeased, may the Lord, and it please the Lord, happy. Because the Lord must be obeyed, and everybody, whatever happens to them, that's their this thing. The Lord must be obeyed first. So it's what I'm talking about, the necessities of life. It's general for all Christians, but I am trying to limit it to maybe young people, because that's the on the unmarried, because that's one of the things that I want to achieve so and so before I get married. In 1 Timothy 6:8, and having food and raiment, let us be there with content. So that when the Lord provides us with these things, whatever things we ought to do, we have to do, and including marriage, if we will marry. There are people who will not marry, fine. Just last year, a friend of mine died. He's over 50. He never got married. He's dead and gone. Yes, he was able to keep himself. I knew him. Fine, if we will not marry, that's fine. But if we will marry, having food and raiment, let us be content therewith and make provision for such a way of obedience. Because if it is the Lord's will to give us other things more than food and raiment, and the food and raiment covers necessities of life, maybe where to stay, a dress, and able to keep, to survive. That's what it means. Not just the food and the raiment, but anything that's, the necessities of life, basic necessities of life. If the Lord give us anything more than this, if you want to give, he will give us. Whether we are married or not, the Lord will give us. You see? So that we shouldn't think that marriage will limit our ambition. Anyway, the Christian don't have any ambition except what the Lord intends for. So that even if I'm working, if I'm able to go high my education, if it's just for my personal glory, it's vanity. You see? If I'm doing that so that, I have a purpose that I want to do so and so that maybe I may have more opportunities so that I can even serve the Lord more, or maybe be able to even help others, maybe able to be useful in a way, that's fine. If the Lord permits, yes, we can do whatever we want to, but merely wanted to advance in life for my personal whatever is not godly. So the Lord, if he wills, he can give us everything. We have Christians that are who have more than the basic necessities of life. Some also have only that. It doesn't matter what the Lord has given us. All that we need is to be faithful, because that we don't need to be unfaithful to him to chase for other things and then disobey him. We don't need to do that, or to be faithful to him. And if it is his will to add to us other things which are in the world, it is his will to give us. But those things shouldn't prevent us to obey him. So that achieving your aims in life before marriage is a godless policy of life. I'm repeating it because it has become the common ideas of life among many young people. Even if he has a job, he has something to do. No, I want to go higher before they think of probably settling down in life. No. If you are able to, how do you call it? If you have the necessities of life, and to avoid temptations where you fall into sexual moralities, it is better if you're a Christian, a single or married. It's better to marry, because Satan, and we live in times where it's very common. Sexual moralities are all over, everywhere. Discussions and whatever you find everywhere. I'm sure those of you who works in the office, the conversation about it is very common. They joke about it, and you have colleagues who are even trying to even feel so proud in it, you see, and it becomes like a common thing. But no, it isn't. To the Christian, that is not a common thing. This is something that's against the Lord. So the American say Yankupon Abuayen na Sabia Oba na Bermani and Warrior na settle to me. So I'm Berman put to me to me the share who kakra. A better say be worry na Yakin who fee born in your ma be who fimu. Yet to me, yet to me assume already. Since you because so ye train them na our my bonny idea and social mind na ma yen to me and assume already. It's a Christopher, I was say I drain and they makes me a drain your man, a different from we ask for dear. Oh no, or so or they be a sinis in this so ye we answer our requirement fan. Sir, obey Jamayo so good hoofy and fan. The here is so I born a but we a Christo near. Yankupon ne new nyamum na ese edi yekai. I go to verse 29, Matthew chapter 5. Verse 29 to 30. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body be cast into hell. So here the Lord also added another thing. How say when he na sintudia to factory na you feel yes and say ubetu atwene na na bia wahwe so ebia faso anya say onipedua nyia no ebekọ obonsam gem if say the how I went to antwene o sounds now so one sound so na how I twatwene yes ubekọ ubehwe saa hunamakwa no since obe ira na onipedua nyia no yede akoto obonsam gem ebusem na Jesus Christ okay this is a proverbial word, and the meaning that anything that is cherished by us, if it tempts us to sin, we ought to deny ourselves of it. We have to deny ourselves of it than keeping it and sinning by it, by which we will be sent to hell where we lose all comfort. Because when we cut off whatever that we cherish so much, but it's a means of sin, and we lose the comfort, whatever the pleasures from it for a season in this world, we'll be free from falling into sin and thereby going to eternal hell. So this is a general, saying to all that sin will lead to hell if it is not cut off from our lives. But the Lord is connecting this to, adultery, which is trying to let us see. So this is added as a way to warn that if you do not deny yourself of the pleasures of sin, then you cannot escape eternal fire of hell. Then the hell here is Gehenna, which the term in the New Testament, which is used to describe hellfire. It's not the hell like the pit or the grave. This is about eternal hell. But I'm sure we know, however, by Christ's atonement for sin, all whom he has saved are delivered from eternal hell. In himself, yes, Christ or cancer, Bonnie said, Yan trap one, I dear see Bonnie crying fear, bravo, na yen jaya, a beco on some gentleman can say, and a cry, some more come out, or be Bonnie beard, the beco hell. Say, answer crane for more. Na in him say yes Christ ne affordable Obama Boneno or Calvary no. So a Geobia a Jenny Panifi obon Sam Jim. And but one thing that is also sure is that all those he has saved do not persist in sinful habits. The can say yes Christ so J Yefi Bonimoa obon Sam Jim, YGF obon Sam Jim, Yen Cobon Sam Jim, so we want my YG, we are born in Washington. But the background in the crescent near yes Christ YG and Quambiano on Tnabonisu. So you see, if we have been saved by the Lord, because he has atoned for our sin, yes, we will not be those who live in persistent sinful habits. In Romans chapter 6, verse 1 to 2, what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? So you see, those of us that the Lord has saved by his grace, he also grant us grace to be able to overcome besetting sins. So we see that true believers are always putting a fight against every nonsense. That's the picture. The church is like, Obi oye JD Papa Bia or Christo Muno. And Bernie Abunya or Kutia Bone. You see, it's not that when we ask that we cannot sin, but we do not continue in the life of sin. So the word here, shall we continue, has to be persistent in sin. A believer may sin because we still live in this body, but a believer ought not to persist in a sinful lifestyle. That's the thing. I think last Saturday I met a young girl, and I asked her, well, the track says, the Lord Jesus Christ will return. So I asked her, will she go to heaven? She said, no. I asked her why. I said, well, because she's a sinner. I asked her, so those who go to heaven, are they sinners? He said, well, he said that all those who go to heaven have stopped sin. So I tried to explain to her that that's not what it means. So that to be saved, you have been, Christ have died and taken the punishment for your sin. But then when he saves you, he gives you a new heart to be able to hate sin and fight against sin till the day he takes you from this world. But sin will never be out of your life. The Bible doesn't say that when we are saved, sin will be out of our life. We will struggle with sin. Sometimes we fall into sin, but then so long as we have that fight and that we don't to live in a life of sin, and that is in our heart, by the grace of God, it's an evidence that the Lord has saved us. Because before we are saved, well, sometimes sin is concerns about we don't really care, but the believer is fighting every day against any nonsense he knows, and that he will not give himself over to a life of sin. So true believers are able to deny themselves of sin because of the help of the Spirit that indwells us. You see, so that why a believer is able to fight against, because of the strength of the Spirit. See, that's why the Bible, Apostle Paul exhorted that we should not quench the Spirit. We should not quench the influences of the Spirit, because we should not resist his promptings and his when our conscience, but he enlightens our conscience against a life of sin or any nonsense. We should not put it aside and continue on and on in it. You see, a believer may fall into that situation, but the Lord will come with a chastening rod if we are genuinely saved. The Lord will chastise us if we are genuinely saved. You see, but then we are given enough. We have the grace of Christ, the grace of God in our heart. The Holy Spirit is to help us. You know, every true believer knows how sin robs spiritual joy. So that every moment we see it as a battleground to oppose every sin. Sin robs us of spiritual joy, any kind of sin, you see. And one of them, as we are talking about, sexual sins, which defiles the body. Time is gone. I'm not sure I can add verse 31 to 32, but let me just add a few things, then I'm done. So in the context of the matter with the Lord speaking about sexual immoralities and how we ought to go, add verse 29 to 30 to show us how we should see the occasions that leads us to all the things that leads us to, so that by this verse 29 to 30, he reminds us that we must not trifle with unclean thoughts, desires, words, gestures, pictures, videos, anything that will cause us to sin. We should cut off from our life and the way they come to us, and also the company of immoral persons, you see, especially such persons who do not frown on sexual moralities. You know, we may have colleagues at workplaces or whatever, but we should be careful, because Satan is very cunning. If those around so loose on these things, it will make us also sometimes initially we may be okay, but with time it will weaken also our thoughts on these things. So every immoral person, you see, we may sometimes somebody may be a friend of somebody who has maybe who is into sexual moralities. But no, Chris, if such a person is in, even whether a believer or not, I mean, if the person is not a believer, you shouldn't have any association with such a person who has low standards on morality. No, any company, the person who doesn't frown on immoralities, we should not. They shouldn't be our friends. See, because when you are together, what are the things that you want to laugh about? If you crack jokes about sin and he laughs, no, such people shouldn't accompany us. We should cut them off. So there could be relations, there could be things, there could be which are as about the Lord Jesus Christ. If thy right eye offend, if they are even so dear to us, you see, we should cut them off. We should deny ourselves of their company and also surroundings where they promote sexual immorality, such as those on social media and TV programs and all over. Today we have many of them, and always I speak about this TikTok and issue, and people will be watching. There are so much immoralities there, which excites sexual sins. The videos and even the football they are going to play. If you look at all the advert they do, it's all about all kind of promiscuity and all kind of things that are not healthy. You see, so that the Christian ought to cut off occasions that may lead into sin. So this is how the Lord Jesus Christ is trying to bring our minds. We cannot add the divorce proper. We'll add it to the other verses next time. But these are the things the Lord wants to break into our mind concerning adultery, that sexual moralities are all, and thou shalt not commit adultery. May the Lord help us as we think about these things. In closing, shall we turn to hymn number 441, hymn 441.